Hey everybody, it's Nick from Android Headlines, and this is our review of the Xiaomi Redmi Pro. So the Redmi Pro is the first in what seems to be a brand new line of devices from Xiaomi that fits somewhere in between the flagship Mi lines and the more budget-friendly Redmi lines. Sporting a metal unibody design that's quickly becoming common among Xiaomi phones, the Redmi Pro comes in a few different configurations. The base configuration, which retails for around $220 or so, packs a MediaTek Helio X20 2GHz processor, 3 gigs of RAM, and 32 gigs of internal storage. And for about $250, you can upgrade to a MediaTek Helio X25 2.5 GHz processor with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage. If you bump that up to about $300, it's going to give you those same specs with a 128 gig internal storage instead. All three models feature a 5.5-inch 1080p AMOLED display, a Mali T880 MP4 GPU, and a 4050 mAh non-removable battery. A pretty standard 5-megapixel camera sits on the front, but it's the rear camera configuration that's really quite interesting and is the most obvious thing that sets the Redmi Pro apart from other phones in this category. On the back, you'll find a 13-megapixel Sony IMX258 sensor alongside a 5-megapixel Samsung sensor, and it's this secondary sensor that's used to provide some really interesting effects. Much like we've seen on some phones in the past, notably HTC's One M8, this second camera sensor is used to create a virtual f-stop rating that's adjustable on the fly in both picture and video modes. This creates a deeper or more shallow depth of field in pictures and makes them much more like pictures taken with a professional SLR camera. The end result is pretty good, and in some situations can even border on great, but the effect still feels like it's a little bit in the beta stages of development, as the software doesn't always seem to know exactly what to focus on, even if it's right in the foreground. Some more mature software on the side could make this a truly killer feature, but for now it's simply just fun to play with here and there and make a cool effect. You can also use this effect in videos, but I really couldn't figure out any good way to truly make it look or work well, so I ended up just writing it off after a few days of trying. Regular photos from this camera are mostly great, exhibiting great balance, lots of zoom detail, and great low light performance for this price range. Shutter speed is ultra fast, and so is the camera software, taking about 1 second flat to launch from screen off, and focusing in around 1/3 of a second too. It's a super fast experience that performs exactly like you want it to, and that goes for regular video mode as well. It's only limited to 1080p video, there's no 4K recording here, but the video present is crisp and clean for full HD video, and even has optical image stabilization for smoother imagery when moving around. Viewing these pictures and video on the phone's 5.5-inch 1080p AMOLED display is simply stunning too, and this marks the first time that we're seeing an AMOLED display on a Xiaomi phone. This isn't just any run-of-the-mill AMOLED panel either. Xiaomi actually sought out a panel that provides 100% NTSC color reproduction and has some incredible overall balance and saturation levels. Brightness is as good as I could ask for, and I had zero problem seeing this one in bright sunlight. There's not even a rainbowing effect like we've seen on some panels recently, which actually has been on some more expensive phones than this. And overall, this one is a fantastic display that's a far cry from the usual bland LCD panels Xiaomi usually uses on their phones to keep that cost low. Housing that display is the metal unibody design, which looks nearly identical to the Redmi Note 4 in almost every way. Even the second camera sensor on the back sits in place of where the Redmi Note 4's Fingerprint Scanner sits, and it's clear Xiaomi has adopted a consistent design for all of its devices at this point. On the bottom sits a USB Type-C port and a single speaker, while the top houses a 3.5mm audio jack and an IR blaster. The Redmi Pro has some super nice clicky metal buttons, and the dual SIM card tray also houses a microSD card slot. Some oddities that I really didn't care for in this design include the glass front of the panel that protrudes about 1 millimeter or so above the metal housing, creating a strange looking lip that feels like it's asking to be dropped. Also questionable is the finish on the brushed metal back, which is ultra slippery and shiny and doesn't really feel any different from the slippery plastic that previous generations of Xiaomi phones carried if you're just holding it without looking at it. One excellent part of the design that's been brought over from the Mi 5 is that home button, which functions both as a clicky physical button as well as a capacitive one that you lightly touch. These actions can be customized to your liking, and the home button also doubles as a fingerprint scanner, just like on the Mi 5. Software-wise, we're looking at MIUI 8 running atop Android 6.0 Marshmallow, an important update for all of Xiaomi's phones, and one that significantly moves the company ahead into a modern UI design and behavior, just as we saw on the Mi Max and Redmi Note. MIUI 8 provides a redesigned notification shade with new quick toggle organization, as well as redesigned multitasking interface. This obviously looks nearly identical to iOS's old interface with one big exception: vertically nested tabs for each supported app. Supported is the key term here, and that list is unfortunately a bit short, as support for this feature could be a truly killer way to organize apps like browsers with multiple tabs. While this design is fantastic, what's not great are the battery-saving features that Xiaomi puts on these phones. We already went over this with the Redmi Note 4 review and cover this with essentially every Xiaomi phone we review ad nauseum. Following the steps we've gone over and other reviews will fix the issues, but no one should ever have to go through this much trouble just to use their favorite email or messaging apps, and I really can't imagine most consumers putting up with this behavior for long, or having the patience to figure out exactly what you have to do to fix it in the first place. If it weren't for this type of experience, just about everything else on MIUI 8 would be sublime, especially when compared to some of the other heavy skins on the market. Themes, second space, dual apps, app locker, and tons of other stuff are all here and bring MIUI 8 at the forefront of the race for features and design in many ways. Battery life is excellent, as should be expected from a battery that's 30% larger than most similarly sized phones, and doesn't seem to be negatively affected at all by shutting off the supposed battery-saving features we saw earlier. Even the audio output on the Redmi Pro is excellent and provides a significantly higher quality output than the Redmi Note 4, with well-balanced sound that works perfectly both on any pair of headphones as well as on higher quality audio systems. Overall, this is one seriously quality device, and one that offers more value for the buck at this price range than many phones on the market. You can expect 2015 flagship levels of performance from this sub-$300 device, and that, among all the other added values on the phone, is something that should be truly celebrated. With some modifications to the default behavior of background app restrictions out of the box, this phone is easily among the best of the best in this price range, and provides an experience that's truly something most people will likely be happy with. Whether or not it's worth getting over the less expensive Redmi Note 4 is a tough call, but if you want a much better screen, higher quality audio output, and a camera with a few more options, this is a great choice. We hope you enjoyed that review and will subscribe to us for more content. Check us out on your favorite social media network, and don't forget to check out AndroidHeadlines.com for 24/7 Android-based news coverage. Thanks for watching, and until next time.